picture a horse for a second, like a really magnificent purebred stallion.
Okay, yeah, I'm picturing it.
Right, so it's bursting with muscle, bred for endurance, and quite literally built from the ground up to cover 1,000 miles without breaking a sweat.
Oh, absolutely. The perfect physical specimen.
Exactly. It has all the raw talent, all the genetic power, and, all the potential you could possibly ask for in an animal. But there is a catch.
There's always a catch.
Without a rider to actually guide it, and without an open road to run on, that 1,000-mile horse just stands completely still in the pasture. I mean, it goes absolutely nowhere.
It's such a striking image because it isolates the one variable we just constantly try to ignore,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which is the environment.
Right.
All that undeniable potential is just suspended. Because, I mean, we love the narrative that raw horsepower is all it takes.
We really do.
We are so conditioned to believe that if you just possess enough talent, or, if you just work hard enough, you will inevitably win the race.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are setting out on a mission to completely dismantle that exact belief.
It's a big mission.
It is. Today, we are exploring this deeply provocative philosophical essay written by Shufeng. This is from November 2024, and it's titled, Adapt to Circumstances: The State of a Celestial Being.
Such a fascinating text.
Our goal for you today is to pull out what turns out to be a surprisingly practical, almost rebellious blueprint for navigating life's unpredictability. We're going to look at how to reach this so-called celestial state by simply rolling with the punches, without losing your mind.
Which is easier said than done.
Oh, for sure. Okay, let's unpack this. What does it actually mean to live without ego, without selfishness, and to just let your career, your relationships, and your opportunities evolve naturally?
Well, I mean, it sounds totally counterintuitive, particularly when you place it against our modern backdrop.
Yeah.
We live in this era of, hustle culture.
The grind never stops.
Exactly. The prevailing dogma is that if you just grind harder, if you optimize every single second of your day, you can essentially bend the universe to your will.
Yeah, the whole manifesting mindset.
Right. But this essay steps in and asks us to look at an older, much more humbling perspective. It draws heavily on ancient wisdom, specifically filtering its ideas through a classic Chinese work known as the Cold Kiln Prose Poem.
Okay, tell us about that.
So the central thesis here is that the heavens are fundamentally volatile. They just do not care about your business plan.
Rude, but true.
They bring storms and fair weather on a total whim, and human fortunes can shift completely independent of human effort.
And the essay illustrates this disconnect between effort and outcome with these really vivid animal comparisons, which I loved.
Yeah, they're great.
It points out that a centipede has 100 legs. If you were looking at raw physical tools, you would assume a centipede is like the race car of the insect world.
You'd think so, with all that hardware.
But the text notes that a centipede cannot outpace a snake, an animal with absolutely 0 legs.
It's a great point.
Or take a rooster. It has 2 wings, it has the entire anatomical structure of a bird, but it cannot fly faster than a crow.
Right, and this gets to the core of what the author is really attacking here, which is our assumption of a linear relationship between attributes and outcomes.
Meaning A plus B equals C?
Exactly. Having the so-called tools doesn't guarantee the result. The physics of the universe are just way more complicated than that.
Definitely.
And the text elevates this from biology to human history, highlighting these massive, almost tragic ironies of virtue and capability. Consider Confucius, right?
Yeah, the ultimate wise man.
In the Eastern philosophical tradition, he is the absolute paragon of wisdom. Yet the text reminds us that he famously found himself trapped, starving, and in mortal danger in the state of Chen.
Wow.
Or look at Zhang Zia, this brilliant strategist. Instead of leading armies, he spent his days just fishing.
Just waiting around. And then it pushes this idea even further into moral territory, which, I'll be honest, is where it starts to feel really uncomfortable. Oh, it definitely challenges our sensibilities.
Yeah, because the text points out that a man named Yanyuan, who was celebrated for his profound virtue and goodness, died tragically young.
Right.
But then you have Dao Ji, who was a notorious, completely unrighteous bandit, and he lived a long, comfortable life. And it talks about lineages, too.
The irony of power.
Exactly. You have the incredibly wise Emperor Yao, but he had a completely dissolute, reckless son. while the foolish, blind elder Gusu fathered the filial sage Shun.
It's just irony after irony.
And military history, too. For those who might not know, Shan Yu was essentially the apex predator of his era.
Oh, an absolute titan.
Yeah, a terrifying, undefeated warlord, a giant of a man with unparalleled tactical brilliance.
Precisely. I mean, if meritocracy is real, Shang Yu wins every single time.
Right.
But he was ultimately defeated and actually pushed to suicide. Meanwhile, his rival, the King of Han, who seemed, physically and tactically weak by comparison, went on to establish a dynasty and rule an empire spanning 10,000 miles.
It's wild, but I have to speak up for anyone listening right now because this feels almost scandalous to hear.
How do you mean?
Well, we are taught from childhood that the world has a moral architecture, good people are rewarded, bad people face justice. Hearing a philosopher bluntly state that the good die young and the wicked prosper, it feels almost offensive to our modern sensibilities. Isn't life supposed to be fair?
It is a really bitter pill to swallow. But the essay is relentless in breaking down that illusion of a perfect meritocracy.
Why, though? Why be so bleak?
Because it is trying to free us from the burden of believing that every failure is a personal moral failing. I mean, if we accept the author's premise that your talent, your physical strength, and even your moral goodness do not guarantee success, we are forced to confront a rather terrifying question.
Which is?
What actually does drive our outcomes? If not us, then what?
Which brings us directly to the concept of fortune. If the 1,000-mile horse needs favorable conditions to run, we have to look at how those conditions are set in the first place.
Right.
The essay dives into the extreme, chaotic swings of the Wheel of Fortune, and it introduces this concept of destiny, specifically referencing Bazi.
Yeah, let's define that, because Bazi is crucial to understanding the author's entire worldview here.
Please do.
Bazi, or the Four Pillars of Destiny, is this foundational concept in ancient Chinese cosmology. The idea is that the exact moment of your birth, the specific year, month, day, and hour, creates a structural, energetic blueprint for your entire life.
So, kind of like astrology.
Sort of. Think of it more like a cosmic weather forecast. You might be a brilliantly skilled sailor, but your Bazi determines whether you are sailing into a gentle tailwind or, a Category 5 hurricane.
And the swings in this weather forecast give you absolute whiplash.
Oh, completely.
The text describes fortunes shifting wildly. It mentions Han Xin, who went from begging for 3 meals a day to bearing a jade seal of command, only to die by treachery when his luck finally declined.
A total roller coaster.
And palace maids falling into disgrace to become concubines, while lowly courtesans rise to become noble ladies. It talks about a hidden dragon lying completely concealed and ignored among ordinary fish.
I love that imagery.
Yeah, like, you could literally be a dragon, but if the weather isn't right, you are just swimming with the trout.
What's fascinating here is that the author, Sui Feng, doesn't just treat this as some abstract academic theory. He grounds the entire philosophy in a very dramatic personal narrative.
Right, his own life.
Exactly. He describes a specific period where he was living in the city of Luoyang. By day, he was literally begging for food on the streets. By night, he was sleeping in a broken, ruined kiln.
Unbelievable.
He describes his clothes failing to keep out the freezing cold, his food failing to stop his hunger, and being utterly despised by society. But he makes a really careful distinction here.
What's the distinction?
He says he wasn't despised because he lacked inherent worth. He was despised purely because of his circumstances. The bad weather, essentially.
And then the cinematic cut from that broken kiln to his later life is just jarring. It's extreme. He goes from being a freezing beggar to standing in the high court with a position of immense honor. He says he wields power over 100 officials. He has thousands of boxes of silk.
The ultimate glow-up.
Seriously. When he leaves his house, robust men carry his whip. When he returns, graceful women present him with wine. It is a rags to riches story on steroids.
But the takeaway from that transformation is where the philosophy really sharpens. Because in our modern hustle culture, if someone went from homeless to a high court official, what would they do?
They'd start a podcast, write a book.
Right. They would immediately write a best-selling memoir crediting their relentless work ethic. They would tell you it was their grit, their morning routine, their sheer force of will.
But Siafeng doesn't do that. Here's where it gets really interesting. He refuses to take personal credit for it.
He actually says, "People say I am noble, but this is not solely of my own doing. It is the result of time, fortune, and destiny."
That is just a wild display of radical humility.
It really is. He is arguing that wealth and status are arranged by fate, built upon that underlying Bazi blueprint. He poetically notes that without the right time, even the sun and the moon lose their brilliance, and the grass and trees cannot thrive.
You cannot outwork a cosmic winter.
Exactly. You just can't.
But I am listening to this, and I can almost hear the collective sigh of frustration from you, the listener.
I get it. It sounds fatalistic.
Right. If everything is governed by this cosmic weather, if human endeavors come to absolutely nothing without the right fortune, aren't we just supposed to throw our hands up?
Just quit.
Yeah. If the wheel of fortune spins wherever it wants, regardless of my late nights and hard work, why shouldn't I just lie down and do nothing when things get hard?
That reaction is completely natural. It sounds like a prescription for total apathy. But this is actually the exact pivot point of the essay.
Oh.
Recognizing that you don't control the weather is not an excuse to give up sailing. The author argues that accepting fate is actually an invitation to a highly specific, very active way of living.
Active lift.
Yes. This is what he defines as adapting to circumstances, or entering the celestial state. It is not about defeat. It is about profound, unbothered acceptance.
Okay, and the text gives us incredibly concrete examples of what this looks like, bringing it out of the clouds and into daily life.
Yeah, the practical magic of it.
It starts with the most basic necessity, food. The author says if you are presented with a lavish banquet, you savor it. But if all you have is a bowl of sweet potato soup or simple steamed cornbread with pickled vegetables.
You eat it without a single complaint.
Exactly. You treat the cornbread with the exact same internal peace as the banquet.
And the environment you find yourself in is treated the exact same way. The author suggests that if you find yourself forced to survive in a frozen tundra, you focus on survival without resentment.
Just total neutrality.
Right. Or if you are stuck in an endless, sweltering summer devoid of any seasonal change, you find serenity without bitterness. There's a particularly striking line about being born, raised, and dying in the exact same place without ever traveling far, yet finding total contentment.
That is such a direct hit on modern culture.
Oh, completely.
We are bombarded with the message that if you haven't traveled the world, you haven't really lived. But this philosophy asks, what if you desperately wish to be in Rome, but you find yourself stuck in New York?
Or vice versa.
Right. Or what if you yearn for spiritual transcendence, what the text calls the second home, but you remain entirely bound to the mundane, everyday grind of paying bills? The celestial state means you just accept your current zip code cheerfully.
And this extends deeply into our social psychology, too. The psychological freedom of this state is immense.
How so?
Imagine watching your peers build grand mansions, buy luxurious cars, strut down red carpets, or become world-renowned.
Basically just opening social media.
Exactly. The celestial state dictates your reaction to all that success. Zero envy. Zero undue admiration. Zero resentment.
Wow, zero.
Zero. You remain entirely unmoved by their fortune just as you remain entirely unbroken by your lack of it. You maintain your dignity.
The text mentions that even if your clothes are completely tattered, your dignity remains intact. Even if your face is marked by sorrow, your heart persists in a state of absolute calm.
It's powerful stuff.
But stripping away the ego to that degree seems almost superhuman, especially for us living today with devices in our pockets that constantly force-feed us everyone else's highlight reels.
It is incredibly difficult.
So I have to challenge this concept a bit. How do you separate this beautiful Zen-like acceptance of your current lot in life from simply giving up? Like, how is adapting to circumstances not just settling for a mediocre life and abandoning your dreams?
You are identifying the exact trap our modern minds fall into. We equate acceptance with surrender.
Because it feels like surrender.
We think if we aren't constantly fighting our current reality, we are losing to it. But the essay reveals its greatest twist here. Profound acceptance is not the opposite of ambition.
It's not.
No, it is actually the second launchpad for it. Adapting to your current circumstances, no matter how unfavorable they might be, is what creates the stable foundation absolutely necessary for future progress.
Wait, really? So by not fighting the current reality, you are actually preparing to change it?
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the cognitive load of resentment.
Okay.
When you are stuck in New York, but spending all your mental energy wishing you were in Rome, the friction of that resentment drains you.
Oh, that makes sense. You're just burning fuel.
You are exhausted before you even start working. The text explains that a solid, stable base allows you to remain calm. It allows you to handle matters with ease and maintain a clear mind.
So you're conserving energy.
Precisely. By accepting where you are, you eliminate the friction. You preserve your intellect. You nurture a positive mindset. The text explicitly states that when the mind is undisturbed, you can dedicate your time, energy, and intellect to continuous learning and the relentless accumulation of knowledge.
Oh, that perfectly explains the ugly duckling metaphor the author brings up.
Yes. The waiting period.
You are patiently waiting for the right opportunity, much like waiting for the ugly duckling to transform into a swan. You aren't doing nothing while you wait, you just aren't trying to rip the feathers out of the duck to force the transformation before it's ready.
That's a great way to put it. The mechanics of this philosophy are mirrored in nature. The text uses these timeless maxims like, just as a rope can saw through wood and water can wear through stone.
Persistence.
Right. It reminds us that when a melon is truly ripe, it falls from the vine naturally. When water flows, a channel is formed naturally.
So you don't force it.
You don't have to violently rip the melon off the vine. You just have to ensure the vine stays healthy and continues to grow while you wait for the season to change.
So what does this all mean? I can offer an analogy based on that image of the water and the stone.
Go for it.
Adapting to circumstances isn't passively lying down and letting the water drown you. It is being the water.
Ooh, I like that.
It is the intense, quiet, relentless work of wearing through the stone drop by drop. It is active waiting. You are still moving, you're still learning, you are still accumulating knowledge, but you are completely detached from the timeline of when that stone will finally break.
Yes. You are removing the friction of ego. By accepting life's ironies, like being plain when others are handsome or poor when others are affluent, you protect your internal peace from external chaos.
And that's true power.
It is. The text reminds us that a noble soul in poverty remains upright, while a man who is newly enriched may still bear the internal marks of his humble beginnings. The internal state is the only thing you truly own.
Because the weather's going to change anyway.
Exactly. If you can achieve that celestial state of unbothered acceptance, you place yourself in the most powerful position possible. When the Bazi weather forecast finally shifts, when the wheel of fortune turns in your favor, you are ready to ascend to a higher realm because you haven't exhausted yourself fighting the universe.
That is a profound shift in perspective. To wrap up today's deep dive, the true takeaway here is that contentment means leading a life unburdened by excessive ambition, but equally unburdened by the sting of despair.
It's the middle path.
It is a delicate, intentional balance. You don't exploit wealth to its absolute fullest when you have it, and you don't let poverty lead you to self-deception or bitterness when you don't. It is about yielding to the eternal cycles of heaven and earth.
And for you listening, this has immediate practical application.
How so?
Well, look at your own life right now. Look at your current unfavorable circumstances. Maybe it is a major project at work that is completely stalled out.
We've all been there.
Or maybe it is an incredibly tough relationship. Or a promotion you were passed over for, despite being the most qualified person in the room.
Which hurts.
It does hurt. But instead of viewing that as a failure or a reflection of your inherent worth, try viewing it through the lens of this text. See it as a mandatory waiting period. A time designed by fate for you to quietly accumulate knowledge, to maintain your dignity, and to let the water wear through the stone.
It all comes back to that magnificent horse waiting in the pasture. The horse doesn't get angry that the rider hasn't arrived.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't scream at the grass. It just eats, builds its strength, and waits for the right moment to run.
Which is all we can do.
Which leaves us with one final lingering question for you to mull over. The text teaches us that true power comes from completely detaching our happiness from our circumstances. If that is true, are the grand ambitions, the rigid timelines, and the obsessive goals we set for ourselves actually the very things preventing us from adapting, finding peace, and ultimately fulfilling our true potential? Something to think about. Until next time.